Hello there. Welcome to Just the Discs. We talk about Blu-rays here and, of course, 4Ks. And today we're going to do a lot of talking about 4K and Blu-ray from Kino Lorber. And I've got a lot of different stuff to talk about here, but I'm going to kind of wing it in terms of what I'm going to pick. But they've been putting out a lot of neat stuff. And July and August of 2024 had some real beauties. I'll start with a big favorite of mine, and that is Prime Cut. Now, Prime Cut is a film from 1974, directed by the great Michael Ritchie, who had one of the great runs of the 1970s as far as I'm concerned. You know, he got started with things like Downhill Racer and The Candidate, and then moved on to some great satirical comedies like Smile, which has come out from Fun City Editions, obviously. Then you have things like The Bad News Bears and Semi-Tough. He's just really doing some interesting work in the 70s, and this is one of my favorites, and it is a gangster movie, more or less. It is about a Chicago mob-ish conglomerate that is dealing with a Kansas City outcropping of their organization that is having some issues. They're having some issues controlling the Kansas City group. And the Kansas City group is run by a guy named Mary Ann, played by Gene Hackman in one of my favorite Gene Hackman roles. And the movie opens in a rather intense way with somebody getting ground up into sausage, basically, and sent to Chicago. And then Lee Marvin is the guy sent out to sort of deal with Kansas City. And he ends up sort of coming across a young girl played by Sissy Spacek who's being sold into prostitution, basically. And there's this whole orphanage that's all the girls there are for. There's some pretty messed up stuff in it, but it's great to see Lee Marvin and Gene Hackman go toe-to-toe, and they both really bring it in this really cool way. The 4K looks very nice, to my eye anyway, and it's just a sort of a 70s gem that I was really excited to see get this kind of 4K treatment. So this one has a commentary by Lee Marvin biographer Dwayne Epstein, as well as an audio commentary by film historian Steve Mitchell and Nathaniel Thompson. Obviously also includes a Blu-ray. Sorry, this is a 72 film. I screwed that up. 1972, not 74. But brand new HBR Dolby Vision mastered from a 4K scan of the 35 camera negative, and I think it looks great. One of my favorites that they've put out on 4K this year so far. So that is Prime Cut. Let's see here. Let's do some French stuff. From Jean-Pierre Melville, we have Le Lulo. Now this one is one of my favorite, not only one of my favorites of Melville's films, but it's one of my favorite like French gangster movies, full stop. I just think it's really a fascinating movie, and it's a movie I have not interesting relationship with, but a relationship with, wherein when I first saw it, a friend of mine showed it to me, and I was like, he was building it up. He was like, this is so great, and I was watching it, and I found it very frustrating, and I didn't get what was going on, and I had a weird thing that almost never happens, which is I had a 180 on the movie by the end. When things sort of were revealed or sort of allowed to play out, I realized, oh man, this is actually really great, and I love the way it goes. Jean-Paul Belmondo's in this. I think he worked with Melville maybe one or two other times, but I could be wrong, but maybe this is the only one. But he's really great in this. Obviously, he's great in this period. This is from 1962. So post Breathless and everything, but okay, so from Jean-Pierre Melville, the legendary director of Bob Le Flambeur, which we'll talk about in a second, Le Deuxième Souffle, Le Cercle Rouge, and Un Flic, and Le Samurai, of course. Highly influential film noir classic. The backstabbing criminals in the shadowy underworld of Lulo have only one guiding principle: lie or die. A stone-faced Jean-Paul Belmondo stars as an enigmatic gangster, Cillian, who may or may not be responsible for squealing on Fugal, just released from the slammer and already involved in what should have been a simple heist. By the end of this brutal, twisty, and multi-layered policier, who will be left to trust? Shot and edited with Melville's trademark cool and featuring masterfully stylized dialogue and performances, Le Dulo, slang for The Informant, is one of the filmmaker's most gripping crime films. It is based on the best-selling novel by Pierre Lassault and beautifully shot in glorious black and white by Nicholas Hare. And this 4K looks great. This has an audio commentary by film historian Sam Deegan, interview with first assistant director Volker Schlondorf, who would obviously go on to be a director in his own right. Birth of the Detective Story Melville style documentary. So some really nice features on this one. This is actually among my favorite 4Ks that Kino's put out this year as well with Prime Cut. But just a really great French noir, thriller, and one that I give a really high recommendation to. This is just great stuff. I was so excited when this got announced. I was actually almost more excited about this 4K than I was for Le Samurai, which I like, but I like this more. So that's Le Dulo. And of course, as mentioned, we also get one of the other Melville greats here. We're getting a lot of great Melville on 4K this year. We got Bob Le Flambeur, Bob the Gambler, and this one was remade with Nick Nolte at one point. Jean-Pierre Melville, legendary director of Le Dulo, Le Samurai, Army of Shadows, and Flick, comes this classic heist film noir in the tradition of Rafifi. Suffused with wry humor, Bob Le Flambeur melds the toughness of the American gangster film with the Gallic sophistication to lay the roadmap for the French New Wave. As the neon is extinguished in another dawn, an aging gambler, Roger Duquesne, navigates the treacherous world of pimps, moneymen, and naive associates while plotting one last score, the heist of the Deauville Casino. This underworld comedy of manners possesses all of the formal beauty, finesse, and treacherous allure of Green Bay's, boasting a beautifully written screenplay by Melville and Auguste Le Breton, and stunning black and white cinematography by Henry Decay. Another Blu-ray that looks, or 4K that looks great. This has a commentary by Nick Pinkerton. I'm a big fan of Nick. Great commentary. Diary of a Villain documentary as well. This is from 1956, so this is actually pre-Breathless and such. And yeah, just definitely one of the all-time classics from Melville. If you haven't seen it, I mean, any one of these could be Criterion releases, so it's cool that Kino's putting these out, but these could have easily been part of like a Jean-Pierre Melville box set, like of his best stuff. Huge recommend for this as well as Le Dulo. Great stuff from Kino. Okay, what else have we got here? I'll save that. We have this very interesting thriller, British thriller double 4K. This is a very neat dual film release of And Soon the Darkness and Sudden Terror, two terrifying thrillers by Robert Feist and John Huff. They're calling this Peril and Distress, this double feature here. And this special edition includes two terrifying thrillers, And Soon the Darkness from 1970, and they describe it as two young British nurses, Pamela Franklin, Michelle Dautrice, bicycling through the French countryside, a mysterious stranger on a lonely stretch of road. The women become separated, and soon after, one of them disappears. Now the remaining girl, alone and frightened, begins an increasingly desperate search for answers among the strangely uncooperative locals. Where is her friend? Where was there a murder? And as the darkness approaches, is the killer now stalking her? Directed by Robert Feist, who did Abominable Dr. Fives, and The Suit into Darkness remains a favorite of thriller fans for its sexual menace, sinister style, and one of the most quietly chilling final twists in 70s British cinema. Sudden Terror, 1970, a young boy, Mark Lester, with an overactive imagination, witnesses an assassination attempt. The hired killers are now hunting the young boy and his sister, Susan George, who I love, who escape numerous attempts on their lives while aided by their grandfather, Lionel Jeffries, and under the specter of martial law. Ace filmmaker John Huff, who did Dirty Mary, Crazy Larry. He also did like Watcher in the Woods and Legend of Hell House. I'm a big fan of his. Packs Sudden Terror, aka Eyewitness, with plenty of tense style, stunning locations, and startling violence. Jeremy Kemp and Peter Vaughan co-star in this shocking and terrifying suspense thriller featuring music by the legendary British art rock bands Fairfield Parlour and Vander Graaf Generator. And this has a ton of stuff on it. You have audio commentary with director Robert Foist and co-writer-producer Brian Clemens, moderated by journalist Jonathan Southcott. Audio commentary for Sudden Terror by director John Huff and uncredited writer-producer Brian Forbes, moderated by journalist Jonathan Southcott. Audio commentary for And Soon the Darkness by film historian Troy Howarth, and then for Sudden Terror by film historians Howard S. Berger and Nathaniel Thompson, as well as And Soon the Darkness, Sudden Terror, eyewitness trailers, etc. These are Studio Canal restorations. They look very nice, as are the Melvilles Studio Canal transfers, and those are always pretty solid. So these look great. A little underseen and maybe underappreciated, but a really neat thing to put these two together. I've often seen these two put together, and I think it's a great choice. So there's that. All right. I have a few more 4Ks, but let's switch it up. Let's talk about Baana Devil. Now, this is a 3D release, Blu-ray 3D, and it is done by the 3D Film Archive, I think. 3D Film Archive, Bob Furmanek. And they are just spectacular with their restorations and with the work they do with these classic 3D films. I want to say this is the first feature-length color 3D film released. It comes out in 1952, beautifully remastered for the very first time in 3D by 3D Film Archive. This first feature-length three-dimensional color motion picture in history, Arch Obler's eye-popping adventure tale Baana Devil kickstarted the 3D movie craze with a roar when British railway workers in Kenya become the favorite snack of two man-eating lions, the head engineers, Robert Stack and Nigel Bruce. Nigel Bruce, of course, from the Sherlock Holmes films. Desperately try to cease the slaughter. Big game hunters are summoned, and a vicious battle between men and beast ensues, all in thrilling color and three astonishing dimensions, filmed using Natural Vision Corporation's groundbreaking stereoscopic system, with the theory that the 3D cameras should see and record the scene exactly as the human eye sees it. Cinematographer Joseph E. Byrock, who worked a lot with, I want to say like Robert Aldrich or something. The legendary Baana Devil now makes the leap from the silver screen to home video, promising to put a lion in your lap and a lover in your arms. I'm a big fan of old 3D movies, and this is one that I'd been meaning to see for a really long time because it is, one of the first or the first color, 3D, and definitely 3D is great. Lion stuff is fun. It's a 79-minute movie, so it moves along pretty quickly, a little talky in spots, but it's beautiful color restoration. Like the color just totally pops, and the 3D is just fantastic. As always, with 3D Film Archive, they do a stellar job. So in terms of features, we have 3D expert Mike Ballou presents the story of Baana Devil with archival images and poster art and on-set stereo slides, as well as M.L. Gunsberg presents Natural Vision 3 Dimension, an original 1952 prologue featuring Lloyd Nolan, Shirley Teggy, and Bob Clampett's Beanie and Cecil from TV's Time for Beanie. Yeah, so there's like this whole 3D introduction that's on the movie where you get to see them sort of talking about 3D, and the film becomes 3D in that moment. It's pretty cool. Included 2D, BD, 3D, polarized, and anaglyph versions, so you can watch the red-blue anaglyph if you don't have a 3D TV, but it is Blu-ray 3D, and that is fantastic. If you can watch it that way, that's highly recommended. So it's got your 3D glasses in there. But yeah, really great 3D restoration, and just glad to have this in the collection now as part of my 3D group, just to sort of as a theatrical historical thing, in terms of 3D. And I really I'm glad to have that one. Okay, let's go back to 4K again. We have Can't Stop the Music. Now, this is a cult film, certainly. A very energetic and memorable film starring the Village People and Valerie Prine and Bruce Jenner and Steve Guttenberg and Paul Sand. And it's an early one for Guttenberg, and he opens the movie on roller skates in a very memorable sequence that is like split screened, and the movie's just got a lot of energy to it. But it's one of those like low on plot kind of movies. Like I want to say he works in a record store, but he's a aspiring songwriter, and Valerie Prine is a model who's like was one of the most famous models in the world, but she's like kind of retired, but she's got a lot of money, and she's got Steve as her roommate for some reason. I guess she needed to split the rent. I don't know, or he needed some help, I guess, more or less is what it is. But so she tries to help him out getting his songs recorded, and they happen to know the dudes who are the Village People, and they end up coming over to her house to record some of his songs, and they play them for her friend who's a record executive, and that's the basic plot of it. But really, it's about just some big musical numbers, some lavish choreography, and just goofy 70s fun, ultimately, and it looks great in 4K. This, of course, includes a Blu-ray. This movie's 124 minutes long, 2.35:1 widescreen. Oh, he's a New York City DJ. That's right. And Bruce Jenner is a uptight tax attorney. That's kind of the romantic interest for Valerie Prine. And anyway, the Village People perform tons of their songs in this, including YMCA, I think multiple times. But yeah, very colorful, design and everything like that. Audio commentary by film historian and critic Lee Gambin, R.I.P., with podcaster and Village People expert DJ Maynard, and audio commentary by the fabulous Alan Carr, director Jeffrey Schwartz, and comedy writer Bruce Valanche. A very fascinating commentary from those two. Interview with the Village People's Randy Jones, and trailer and TV spots and stuff. But definitely a cult film that I know a lot of people are going to be excited to have in 4K, and is fun despite not having a lot happening in it. Anyway, that's the 4K of Can't Stop the Music. Let's see here. We have a lovely 4K of Invasion of the Body Snatchers. This is the 1956 Don Siegel original version of the film, and this is a heck of a nice release, I gotta say. Beautiful black and white 4K, and the classic sci-fi tale of pod people and Kevin McCarthy being the one who's slowly figuring out what's happening. But yeah, this is another widescreen movie. Actually, this is a 185/2.0 widescreen, and it has just a ton of stuff on it. It has, look at all these commentaries. Oh, and it's a brand new Dolby Vision HDR master from the 4K scans, the best available 35 elements they could find. So, it's not as pristine as some, but it's the best this movie's ever looked as far as I'm concerned, and it really does it a lot of justice, I think. Let's see here. Okay, so audio commentary by stars Kevin McCarthy and Dana Winter, moderated by filmmaker Joe Dante. That's a great track. Audio commentary by film historian Richard Harlan Smith. Also great. I'm a huge fan of Richard Harlan Smith. I love his tracks. Audio commentary by film historian Steve Mitchell and Nathaniel Thompson. Those guys are always wonderful. Audio commentary by film professor and film scholar Jason A. Nye. Also great. So you have 4 different commentary tracks. And there's a Blu-ray and a 4K, of course, included here. The Fear is Real featurette with filmmakers Larry Cohen and Joe Dante. That's also fantastic. The Stranger in Your Lover's Eyes featurette, and I No Longer Belong, The Rise and Fall of Walter Ranger featurette about the producer of the film. And of course, it's based on the novel by Jack Finney. But a true classic and a really beautiful 4K presentation of this from Kino. A big recommend on this one as well. Okay, what should we close out with? Let's close out with boy, what do we got? Well, this one's going to be a little strange, but it's a Kino Blu-ray, Something Weird collaboration, the Cocaine Fiends. So this is one of those sort of classic hysterical, like drug films of this period. Reefer Madness is very much in line with this, but this one's something of a classic along those lines. The Golden Forbidden Fruit, The Golden Age of Exploitation, Volume 16. So it has Cocaine Fiends and The Pace That Kills, 1928 original. And it's a cocaine snorting gangster, Noel Madison, lures a small town waitress, Thelma Daniels, to the big city, where a series of tragedies unfold. When her brother, Dean Benton, attempts to locate her, he falls into his own whirlpool of drugs and moral degradation. The Cocaine Fiends is a remake of the wildly successful 1928 silent film The Pace That Kills, which was the template for Reefer Madness, Marijuana, and hosts in a host of 1930s drug scare films. Both films are presented here in new restorations from archival 35mm elements by the UCLA Film and Television Archive, 4K from the original camera negative, and from the Library of Congress, 2K from a seasoned 35 print, and are presented in cooperation with Something Weird and with Sunny Amusement Enterprises film collection. So a lot of cool folks collaborating on these. Now this has an audio commentary for The Cocaine Fiends by Eric Schaefer, author of Bold, Daring, Shocking, True, A History of Exploitation Films, as well as an audio commentary for The Pace That Kills by film historian Anthony Slide. Alternate opening credits, 1973 re-release trailer. Very excited to check this one out, as I'm a fan of these Something Weird Kino exploitation films. So anyway, that will do it for this round. I've definitely got more Kino talk to come very soon. Thank you so much for listening, and I will talk to you soon. Bye-bye.